today, Bob?
I am home today, but after this, then I'll pop in.
I have some ice water.
Then I'll be jumping in.
Hi, Dee.
Hello.
I haven't been in my office on a sunny day in a really long time. So I just closed my blinds because it's like super bright in here. Not that I would ever complain about having some sunshine, right?
So we still have another couple of minutes, Lori, just to.
I'm good. Did anyone do anything exciting this weekend? This was how I'll break the ice.
We got a couple of pigs this weekend.
That's so awesome. Have you had pigs before?
Huh?
Have you had pigs before?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's kind of
Did I
fun.
tell you Galena finally got a rabbit for her 4-H showing?
You did. That's exciting.
It's very
We
exciting.
might even have a fair this year.
I know. I mean, it's outside, right? Seems like we can go outside.
Yeah. So they're trying to see if they can pull it off.
It's awesome. She would be excited. Although then I showed her some of the criteria they judge your rabbit on, and she's like, I don't want anybody judging my rabbit.
That's
she's,
part of it.
She's like, I don't want them. What's wrong with his head? Is his head wrong? I was like, okay, we'll learn. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Okay, Lori, given that we're on a timetable today, I am going to just go ahead and start. Hi, everyone. I'm Ginny Lesser. I'm in the Department of Statistics and I'm chairing the search committee for your department. I wanted to welcome everyone to Lori Keyes' Vision Talk. As you know, Dr. Keyes is a candidate for the Associate Department Head in Integrative Biology. She received her PhD in Forest Ecology from Oregon State in 2009. She's currently the course coordinator for the Principles of Biology series, serving over 1,100 students per term. Dr. Keyes has incorporated a number of innovative instructional practices into her teaching. She co-developed the Learning Assistant Program and a grant-funded faculty professional development program around incorporating inclusive classroom practices into her teaching. Dr. Keyes' work has earned her recognition across Oregon State University, including being a recent recipient of the OSU Faculty Teaching Excellence Award. All of Dr. Keyes' efforts have resulted in improved student experience and success at OSU. We thank Lori for applying to this position, and now we look forward to her Vision Talk.
All right,
Okay.
Thanks for that, Ginny. And I'm going to just go ahead and share my screen. And I'll say that I am relatively comfortable with folks interrupting and asking questions as we go, but I also have been asked just to speak for 20 to 30 minutes and leave time for questions and discussion at the end. And so either way is okay with me. I'm relatively comfortable in the Zoom space. And so I was asked to give a talk about my vision in relation to kind of the associate head position in our department. And this is really going to focus a lot on undergraduate programs. And then when I think about our department, I'll say that I think a lot about people. And when I think about people, I think about our students, both our graduate students and our undergraduate students, and the students who take our courses who aren't even in our department. I think about our faculty and our staff and our the people who really help us do the work of the department. And I think a lot about how the relationships that we build with each other and within our department actually help us all do our work better and make our work easier and a lighter load when we can have relationships with one another. And so my talk is going to focus a little bit on this idea of fostering success and belonging through relationship building. Let's see if I can get back into there where it'll advance. I didn't check. Y'all can see my slides, right? I'm good, right? Okay. And so the search committee asked me to just review the position description for folks so they knew what the position was responsible for. And I went and looked at that again as I was preparing, and there's 25 unique tasks listed in this position description. So really small amount of work. It's really broken down into 60% overseeing the undergraduate program, 20% overseeing advising related to the undergraduate program, and 20% in this other bin. And what that looks like, because of the nature of our programs, in the case of the coordinating the undergraduate program, is really creating vision and coordinating the undergraduate curriculum with the curriculum committee. There's a lot of liaison and coordinating with the different factions that are involved in our curriculum, with the college, with Cascades, with Hatfield, with the School of Life Sciences, and kind of with a lot of the folks that are involved in what it takes to put our undergraduate curriculum into play every year. And the other things that are in here are things like the budgets related to undergraduate curriculum, the teaching assignments, helping with that, and the GTA assignments, also dealing with the academic misconduct and the grievances coming from the undergraduate program, and then oversight of the assessment of undergraduate programs. It's kind of a lot in there in working with others. And then in the advising coordination, it's really a smaller portion of the job, but coordinating the advisors and also kind of overseeing transfer policies to our relationships with institutions outside Oregon State and how we bring those courses from our vast students into our transfer programs. And then the last bin, this is my favorite. The thing I'll highlight most in there is advancing the EJI mission of the department. And then there's a whole bunch of things that are like help D. That's not what it said, but basically that's what it means. And then I'll categorize the rest of it as like other really important stuff that our department needs to accomplish that kind of fall into this like big other bin. So it's things like coordinating on the building and different things like that while helping the head do that kind of work. So with that framing, that's going to kind of lead the way into how I want to talk about my vision for my time in this position. And I was given 3 questions that I hope to answer today, and you can see them here. The first is about the broader vision related to undergraduate programs in IB. The second is about how we can develop those programs in a way that's responsive to students from increasingly diverse backgrounds that may not be similar to our own. And then the third question was about how IB might balance its efforts of the new Ecampus zoology degree with the on-campus biology and zoology degree offerings that we have. And then I added my own question that's a little bit about what do I think I bring to this position that I'll share with you all at the end. And so that's going to be kind of the order and the structure at which I'll go through the talk. And like I said, I'm happy to pause for questions at any point and definitely have some time at the end for those questions. And so starting with the first one, what is your broader vision, my broader vision for the future of undergraduate programs in integrative biology? And I came up with this idea about really the vision that I have has to do with continuing and advancing the work that we've already started in our department in some ways, thinking about using innovation and inclusion to help our students build their science identities. And when I say innovation, I mean curricular innovation and inclusion. I think we can do that through inclusive teaching, advising, and mentoring practices, and then helping our students to then build their science identities so that they can leave our programs and move forward into the career paths or more academic training that they may need in the future. And so let me break that down for you all a little bit here. When I talk about curricular innovation, you know that we've done a lot of kind of curricular innovation in our unit recently. And we started last year with this idea of this curricular alignment in revising our learning outcomes and thinking about how our courses feed into those. And I think that that vertical alignment of our curriculum, kind of from the bottom of the curriculum all the way up to the top, is some work that we still need to finish and some work that will help us craft our curriculum into something that's really cohesive, a really cohesive unit. I also know that coming from the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, there's a call coming in for some horizontal alignment of curriculum across courses, particularly in a transfer way that will most impact our lower division courses, because those are the ones that are most in the transfer pathways. And so that curricular alignment is coming forward as well, really looking at how we can create courses that are consistent across at least the state of Oregon in the way that we offer them to ease the burden on our transfer students. The other place I think about curricular innovation is in evidence-based practice. And by that, I mean practices that are based in the education literature on how we do teaching of biology really well. And I think that we can use evidence-based practice, and we already do in many ways, for our teaching, for our advising, and for our mentoring. And so really leaning into that literature to help us find ways to improve our student experiences. And I think that that's a goal that's never finished, right? And so even though we've done some innovation in these ways, I think that there's always more to learn about how our students learn and how we can increasingly make them successful in their futures. And then the last two bullets sort of go together in thinking about how we make decisions about our curriculum. And I'd really like to focus on using our assessment and some data to help us make evidence-based decisions about how we change our curricula. And most of you know that I've been the lead assessment officer in our department for a long time. And for me, making that assessment really valuable and really doing that full cycle assessment, which means we take the results from the assessment to adjust our curriculum for the future, is a really important part of how I see us as building our curriculum as we go forward. When I think about inclusive practices, I think about sort of three prongs, and I'm going to talk more about this in the next question as well. And so I think about how we bring students access to our programs, how we make them feel a sense of belonging, and how we then, again, use these evidence or high impact-based practices to ensure their success. I also think when we think about inclusion, we might want to look forward and think about who's in our program and why. We've never had to think about recruitment before, but if we want to make sure that we're supporting diverse students, we may want to look at ways to increase the pathway for diverse students to come into our department at the undergraduate level. And I think along with that, an increase in our community building activities with our undergraduates could be really valuable for them. And I know we have huge undergraduate programs, so it's hard sometimes, I think, to imagine how we do community building with them. But I think that we could increase the way that we draw them into our department in a way that helps them build those connections with our unit, with our faculty, and with the other students in our department, that makes them feel more included in the department. And then the last one here is about the science identity. And one of the ways I think that we can really help students, and one of the best practices and most inclusive practices, is really this idea of experiential learning, which, as you know, is part of the Undergraduate Student Success Initiative. And our department has a long history of providing experiential learning opportunities for our students. And I'd like to see us continue that, and then also think about ways we can expand the access to experiential learning and structural support for the experiential learning. And whether that learning is, research experience for our undergrads, or teaching experiences for our undergrad, or internships, whatever that looks like, making sure that we're removing the barriers and increasing the access to that, those experiential learning opportunities in a way that situate our students to develop the identity that they need in order to move forward. I also think that once we have some of these things, I think our department is really well situated to look for some national recognition. I received an email just the other day from the Partnership of Undergraduate Life Science Education, or PULSE, about an accreditation process that they just received an NSF grant to do. And I think we'd be in a really good place to go through this accreditation process with PULSE and see, where we are as far as our national biology biology curriculum. I think that'd be really good for our department and look really good for our undergraduate programs. And then I also think by building really strong connections and strong science identity with our students, we can continue to have really strong alumni relations and all of the benefits that come with keeping our students connected with us as they leave our institution, which might include increasing access to experiential learning through alumni relations. Okay, everyone good? All right, so the second question was about how should I develop undergraduate programs that are responsive to students from increasingly diverse backgrounds? And as you know, our student body is changing and has been changing for a long time. And we're going to see more and more students who may not come from the same types of backgrounds as we come from. How can we really work to support them? And some of these things overlap with what I just said my broader vision for the undergraduate programs are. And that's because I'm leaning into this idea of inclusive pedagogy, which is an evidence-based type of pedagogy out of the education literature. And there's kind of three prongs into this. And some of you have heard me talk about inclusive pedagogy before, but I think there's lessons for us here in inclusive pedagogy and thinking about how to support those students. And so the first prong, which I realize now I put in a different order than on the last slide, that's okay, is success. And so the success prong really has to think about what can we do to ensure that our students are successful in our programs. And some of the ideas that I have, and I just want to say that I'm aware that ideas don't come for free. And so I think that we have to have resources to develop new programs. But some of the ideas that I've thought about over the last 10 years as I've watched students come into our biology programs is some of the ways that we might increase success for diverse students are there's a lot of evidence that bridge programs from either community colleges or from high schools can actually help our diverse students be more successful once they get to OSU. So either a summer bridge program, or I've seen these really amazing research bridge programs that bring community college students directly into research labs. And then I think that because our student population doesn't actually interact with a biology like science course in their first year, I think we could think about ways to enhance the first year experience of our students as they come into OSU and how we connect them to our department. And that early connection and that early drawing them in, I think can be really helpful in ensuring their success as they go through our programs. The next piece of the inclusive pedagogy, again, has to do with access. And this is just really thinking about how we get students access and how we remove barriers that might be in their way of having access to the things that they need in order to be successful in our programs. And so I think about experiential learning opportunities and how we create access to those opportunities. And we've embedded them in our programs, which I think is really, really great, but also making sure that we're making sure that we're providing access as far as cost of those programs and different access to the program that the student really wants in their programs. And so also with access, there's always this problem of differential costs of education. And so I think that we've already done a lot of work on access, on mitigating costs of education in regards to textbook costs and thinking about other ways that we can support our students by mitigating the costs of their education that may be differentially impacting those diverse students. And then I think that much like we're doing an evaluation of our policies as a department related to equity, justice, and inclusion, we're doing that policy evaluation. I think we could evaluate our undergraduate programs and look for potential barriers that exist for our students as far as their access that are preventing them from being successful at this period of time. And I think that that's not a huge lift because I think generally we don't have intentional barriers, but I think that there's always that kind of hidden curriculum that may be barriers to our diverse populations. The third prong is always the one that I am in the most focused on, is thinking about how we foster a sense of belonging with our students. And I think as we develop this Ecampus program, we're going to need to think a lot about how we create those connections with our Ecampus students and how we bring them into our department and make sure that they feel like they belong as members of our community. And I think that we already do such an amazing job of creating a culture of caring about our students, about their success, us. And I think that we need to continue to cultivate that culture of caring for our students and bring that around our eCampus students as well, and make sure that our department is a really welcoming place for them, and thinking about how we engage the eCampus with the on-campus students both. And then when I think about belonging, I think a lot about just being responsive, whether it's culturally responsive or just broadly responsive in our teaching, in our advising, in our research lab mentoring of our undergraduate students, and really gaining an appreciation for the diversity that they have and being responsive to that in a way that allows them to be successful. And so those are the three prongs of the inclusive pedagogy that I think will help us respond to our increasingly diverse student population. But I also think that there's a lot in there that, like, things cost money and time. And so I think that we have to support programs to support our students if we want to do that. And I think that we can do that through financial support or FTE support or graduate student support or whatever that looks like. I think that there's also some training that sometimes is really helpful for folks. So our, GTA training that Adam teaches is such a good example of how we can use training to help our graduate students be more successful in teaching, but then also that helps our undergraduate students be more successful in their lab classes. One of the things I've been meaning to do for 100 years, and we've sort of started through the iBioBits that Adam is running, is creating a repository of teaching materials, and I would also argue potentially advising materials, and maybe a sense of best practices. And these might be things that are things, for example, like the Scientist Spotlight that some of us are implementing in our classes right now, a repository of those types of things that are actually content-based, but also a repository of sort of the practices that might be useful in helping us respond to our students. And then again, I recognize that all of these things are really work, and I think that recognition and rewards are really important. And so that national accreditation idea of rewards for our department, but also making sure that we're continually nominating our faculty for university and college awards so that they're being rewarded for the work that they're putting into supporting our students. All right. I hope I'm doing okay. I know I talk really fast, y'all. I'm trying hard to talk at a pace that people can understand me. So the last question is definitely the most challenging for me to respond to. And this is about how IB should balance efforts focused on its new eCampus zoology major with the on-campus biology and zoology degree programs. And I have a lot less experience with eCampus than some folks. I've helped a little bit with some course development, and I've had a few interactions with eCampus more broadly, but I have less experience than a lot of the folks who teach in those courses with us. And so I went and did a little bit of research about eCampus and the things that really make eCampus be successful. And one of the things that I really felt like we should do, this balance is going to be hard as we now have this really big already, so eCampus zoology degree, and we need to find ways to support those students. And so the way that I kind of came at this question was thinking about how can we build from our strengths? How can we take the things that we're really good at as a department and make sure that that's transferring across all of our undergraduate students? And so when I think about that, again, I have three sort of bins here. And the first is building connections. And I went and looked at the eCampus they were just recognized as number 4 in the nation. And I went and looked at some articles about why they were given that nomination. And one of the reasons is about connections, and it's about connections with faculty and students. It's about connections between students and students. I think we can build connections between our eCampus students and our on-campus students. I think we also need to make sure we're connecting our department to our students. And of course, our advisors are much more in touch with our students on a regular basis than some of the rest of us are. And so I think that building those connections, but thinking about how we build them and how we can use the student population that we have here on campus to build connections with our eCampus students, I think could be a really interesting way to think about that piece. The next thing I think about is that we might still need some training on eCampus. We have some faculty who have taught a lot of eCampus and a lot of faculty who have not taught any eCampus. And I think that it would benefit us to all have some sort of framing around what that looks like. And whether that's eCampus training, I know there's the Quality Matters training, or if you're going to teach eCampus, of course, you might need technology training. But I also think that there are some other units who have had large eCampus programs for a lot longer than we have. And we can reach out to some of those other units and build those connections in order to help us understand maybe how to build that balance, and also how to support our eCampus zoology degree as well. And so I could see us leaning into some of the units like Fish and Wildlife or Environmental Science, who've really had these big eCampus programs a lot longer than us, for ideas about how to kind of build that balance and support those students in the way that we want to. And then the last piece here that I also found from what eCampus found that they were really valued for is this idea of collaborative learning experiences. And this is something that I know our faculty who teach in eCampus work really hard on, creating collaborative learning experiences. And I think that that's something that, again, we're really good at, and we can build from our strength in doing this on campus in order to think about how we can do that with our eCampus students. And I think some of the ways to do that is to leverage the strengths of eCampus. Having students all over the world can provide a really rich conversation and collaboration in really different ways. I think that we've learned a lot, at least I have, about collaborating remotely through our Zoom teaching and having my own students all over the world. I think that there's things that we can build into our eCampus programs like service learning or career training internships that will help those students have those collaborative learning experiences wherever they are. And then I know that some of our courses have kind of tried to mimic and build these specialized field experiences that we already hold for our students on campus into their eCampus classes in order to bring that thread forward for our eCampus zoology students, so that they're able to see, they're able to kind of access that, really unique aspect of our programs here at Oregon State, even though they may never actually come to campus. And I know it's not the eCampus model, but there could be some hybrid opportunities for students who had the capability of coming to our campus to think about how they might get into those specialized field courses as well by coming and visiting for a short period of time. And I think all of those things would allow us to kind of build on the things that we're really good at here, but also support our eCampus students in a way that would allow them to be really successful and have a really great degree experience while they're with us, not at OSU, or maybe at OSU, depending on who they are. All right, and so that brings me to my last point about what do I bring to this position. And Jenny mentioned a lot of the kind of the work that I've been doing over the last 10 years in her introduction. And I just want to say that some of the things that I think I bring to this position is I come with a commitment to improving undergraduate biology education. And I've been working at that mostly from the Bi 2-2X lens for the last 10 years. But I also have a lot of big picture ideas about how biology majors writ large can be structured. And I tend to do that through building consensus to make decisions. I've worked with a lot of faculty across the region and the nation about building consensus around curriculum. And I always try to do that in a respectful and collaborative way. And I would bring that to our department as well. I'm also tend to be really creative in my logistical implementation and a little fearless. And so some of the things I'll highlight is that I've been working on 3 different NSF grants, either as a participant or as a PI, where we're really looking at how we transform biology education based on the national recommendations from the AAAS, the Vision and Change in Undergraduate Biology Education. And this first grant, the Northwest Biosciences, was one looking at mostly at our undergraduate, our lower division offerings and how we align those horizontally. And through that, I worked on a lot of transfer issues as well in relation to how we think about transferring from a lower division sort of more into an upper division sort of coursework, whether it's from community college to 4-year or within a 4-year. I also worked and have participated and facilitated with the Partnership for Undergraduate Life Science Education on their work, which is really more about departmental change and how we help departments align their programs and their whole biology curriculum with vision and change for biology education. And then here at Oregon State, I worked with the Esteem at OSU, which was looking at best practices and how we do best practices in the classroom. And this is where Devin and I were able to start the Learning Assistant Alliance, our Learning Assistant program here, which is part of the Learning Assistant Alliance. And I'll say that some of this work, my regional work, both within Pulse and within the Northwest Biosciences, led to my being selected to help lead, in addition to Brock and some faculty from other institutions, the Oregon Transfer Compass, which was a higher education coordinating commission effort to build a major transfer map. And biology was the first major transfer map built. And that map is basically a 90 credit degree that if you get it at a community college, it's guaranteed to transfer anywhere in the state of Oregon. And so the collaboration and the relationships that I had built through these working groups allowed us to kind of work within this really, I would argue, Brock, you can correct me if I'm wrong, contentious space around how we actually align our curriculum across all of the community college and four-year institutions in Oregon. I also have a commitment to equity, justice, and inclusion work, which again is part of this position. And many of you know I'm one of the leaders of the Inclusive Excellence at Oregon State grant, which is a HHMI funded initiative, which is about really faculty professional development, about how we build inclusion into our classrooms. And this is now across not only the College of Science, but also we have faculty from across the institution participating as fellows in our program, where we deliver this professional development around how to be inclusive. And we're one of, I'm going to use the number 57, but it might be 83 by now. I can't actually remember how many were in the third cohort, institutions across the country who are doing this work and trying to increase this inclusion. And then the last thing I'll add is that I have a broad familiarity with biology education and connections across the country and the region from my work with working through the Biology Education SABR, which is the Society for the Advancement of Biology Education. I've been involved in a biology leadership community and also facilitated and participated a lot in things like the National Institute for Scientific Teaching. So a lot of background working with folks on how we think about improving and innovating curriculum more broadly within biology across the country. And so I think all of this kind of speaks to the fact that I have really broad curricular assessment, EJI knowledge and experience already that I'd be bringing into this position. And of course, I recognize that I would still have a lot to learn from y'all and how to work with y'all as I move forward into a position like this if I were to get it. And that, I think, is my last slide for you. And so I am happy at this point to answer any questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you very much, Lori, for that nicely done talk. So do we have questions from the group? You could either raise your hand. I see some clapping. Raise your hand or chat. I have the chat open. I don't see any questions. Oh, is that one?
Hi, Lori. I'll ask a question. So I am curious, in sort of thinking about this position, there's a part of it that's a fair amount of liaison with other departments, other colleges. And I'm sort of wondering what you think are some of the ways, I mean, we have some structures, but ways to sort of work on the undergraduate curriculum such that we maintain some coordination, right? So that the courses overlap, don't overlap. There's this issue of sort of, overlapping content, but on the other hand, you want to have some reinforcement of content over the courses, over different courses. And it's sort of a, anyway, it's a difficult thing to sort of get done anyway, but then across, outside of departments, across colleges, there are additional challenges. So I wonder if you have ideas about how to make that process work well or better.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that question. And as you know very well, I already work across our colleges pretty significantly, and by 2x, which is, for those of you who don't know, is taught half by our botany colleagues and half by integrative biology colleagues. And so I have a lot of experience with that level of liaison. And across the biology major in particular, there's even more collaboration that is necessary for that curriculum to be put on the ground. Basically, there's folks who teach from all sorts of units in our curriculum. And so I'm going to point back to that curricular alignment idea. And I think that one of the things that can really help with that work is having really clear programmatic learning outcomes and really building that assessment piece into those programmatic learning outcomes. And then making sure that that is communicated across all of the folks who are involved in the teaching of those courses, right? And so that every single person who teaches one of those courses knows the place of their course in that program, particularly if it's a core course. Of course, our majors have these big bins of courses, right? And so the bins are a little bit harder to manage in that way, but making sure at least those core courses really have very clear spots in our larger programmatic plan, our learning outcomes and assessment plan, that help faculty know what's essential. Right. And then I think one of the things we worked on with my Northwest Biosciences grant is we built a set of learning outcomes for introductory biology, but we called it the minimal essential set of learning outcomes for introductory biology, with the idea that then each faculty is going to bring kind of their own voice and their own ideas and their own, favorite topics into those courses. And of course, we want faculty to have that level of freedom within their courses, because that's what makes us dynamic and have a lot of fun in our classes and able to do things in a way that get our students really excited. And so I think that having the guidelines set up that create the consistency within our curriculum, but also creating a system that allows the flexibility of individual instructors to be themselves, right? And to bring their own passions into our classroom, I think is really important. And I think that time, when I think about liaisoning and working with other units, I think that time is really valuable for folks, but I do think that there is some elements where it might be useful for us all of the folks who teach in the biology major, for example, to come together on maybe a semi-annual basis or like every other year basis to talk about that curriculum, right? And to make sure that we're on the same page and all of that. And I know that that's a big ask for people time-wise, but I think it could be really valuable for folks as well.
Great.
Thank you.
There's another question in the chat from Mark Novak. I'll read it, and then if Mark wants to elaborate or have any further questions. Thanks, Lori. Do you have thoughts on the use of TT instructors and grad students for teaching Ecampus courses?
So I think that as our programs grow, so again, one of the things I saw when I was looking at the Ecampus website and the things that make the Ecampus programs really successful, a lot of it has to do with the faculty and the faculty credentials. And so I think that some of the things we're going to want to think about as we go forward is how we create the classes for our students that help them be really successul. And so I think that having those faculty connections in our eCampus programs is really important. I think what's really tricky to me, and again, I'm not super expert on eCampus yet, but what I think is really challenging about eCampus classes in a way that is a little bit less challenging in on-campus classes is how you transfer the course from the developer to the to other folks over time. And I think that that gets really, it's kind of sticky because you have all of these potential videos that maybe highlight this one individual who developed that course, and maybe someday that person's not going to teach that course, right? And so I think that there's some interesting things about handing eCampus courses around that make it have a kind of a different challenge than it does maybe putting an instructor in a course that's maybe on campus, right? That maybe they teach, you know, every other year or something like that. At the same time, I think that there's value in having diverse faculty voices in our classes. And I know, for example, some of our courses have used videos of faculty in their research space in order to kind of create that connection between research and teaching in our eCampus courses. So I don't know that if I have the full answer to your question, Mark, but I think that it's important that we all be involved in our new eCampus degree and think about how we can make that work for our students in a way that highlights really what it should mean to be at an R1 institution, which includes research, right? And it includes research opportunities and things like that.
Great, thank you, Lori. Any other questions?
Jenny, I have a question in the chat that was private chatted to me. I can share really quickly.
Right.
And it's about how do I have any ideas about how online eCampus students might be more included in our department? And so again, I just wanted to say that one, as I've mentioned several times, like eCampus is not my super expertise, but I do think that, like I just mentioned in my response to Mark's question, I think if we can find ways to tie our eCampus students into the research mission of our unit and think about ways we can kind of tie them into the strengths that we have as a unit, I think that that can really help them kind of get the full experience of being here at Oregon State. And I think that there are lots of faculty who've been teaching eCampus with us for a long time, who also probably have really great ideas about how to bring those students and help them feel more included in our department. But I definitely think this is a place that we have a lot of growth because the zoology degree is so brand new for us and mostly launched during COVID. I feel like we can barely hold ourselves together at all. That I think that we have a lot of growth, and I would be really, I've already started reaching out to some of our colleagues over in Fish and Wildlife to talk to them about ways that they connect with their eCampus students kind of more broadly to help bring them into their department. And I'm sure there's other units that I don't have as many connections with potentially that would have really good ideas, as well as working with eCampus to think about how we bring that sense of belonging to our online students.
Good. Thanks, Lori. I don't see anything else in the general chat. I don't see any hands up. Tara, did I miss anything? I don't see anything.
I don't think so.
Okay. I mean, if we don't have any other questions. Oh, well, there is. Karen Watt has a question. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I appreciate all the conversation around eCampus. Just out of my own curiosity, I'm wondering about how you collaborate with Cascades, and if you can speak to that relationship a little bit and how you'd foster that.
Yeah, so I'm in a little bit of a unique position probably compared to most faculty in that Cascades started offering the 2-1X series that I coordinate. And they started offering it kind of late because they used to have a partnership with COCC and they didn't actually offer the lower division courses. And so I was actually already in my position when they started offering that course. And so I actually have pretty extensive relationships with all of the faculty over at Cascades, at least the ones who have taught in the introductory sequence. And I think it's almost all of them. And you know, this year in particular has been just like kind of an amazing collaboration between us and them. And so as we went into the remote environment, they started like, what are we going to do about these labs and like all of these things that we're trying to like put online? And Carmen Harjo and I have worked really hard as we're building the things to put them online. We've just been sharing as much as we can and sharing Canvas sites with them, the folks over there, and providing them with other supports as far as kind of logistical supports, and just kind of making sure that we can streamline this process of building this like giant remote curriculum. And so because Cascades is in a situation where their curriculum is aligned with ours, I treat the faculty who teach over there as though they're part of my teaching team. So they're invited to my by 2NX teaching team meetings and all of that. They don't always make it even in Zoom, but we try to work really hard together to help make sure that they understand the changes in the 2x as it's moving, as well as they bring their own ideas to the table so that they feel like they have some kind of access to that curriculum and control over it as well. And I think that we have pretty good relationships with those folks over there because of that. And so I know that we like currently our curriculum is super aligned, because why build more than one Canvas site if you don't have to for remote learning? And so it's been a really good experience to be able to work directly with the faculty in order to kind of create this new learning environment for them. And they've had some recent turnover, but the new faculty who are teaching there right now have also worked with us and us sharing materials with them to make sure that they're able to kind of hit the ground running with the 2x curriculum. And so you could see, if I move into a position like the associate head, we'd want to do that with a broader curriculum, not just with the principles of biology courses.
Wonderful, thank you.
Great, thank you. Let's see, are there any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat.
I have a question.
Okay.
Hi, Lori, this is Mike. You've done a lot of work with bringing graduate students into the teaching team and sort of teaching them different techniques as far as inclusive teaching and all that. And I'm wondering if you have any ideas about including graduate students in mentorship opportunities in the department.
Thanks, Mike. You know, one of the things that was really hard about this talk that was all about undergraduate curriculum is I didn't get to talk about graduate students very much, which is like kind of new for me. And so as you know, I've worked with graduate students a lot to help with curricular development. And I know that a lot of our graduate students work with our undergraduates in research lab mentoring, right? And I think that one of the things that could really help all of us is thinking about how we kind of bridge that gap so I get asked pretty much ad nauseum from students in my course for research opportunities, right? It's a constant request. I'm told I should do undergraduate research. I want to do undergraduate research. How do I do undergraduate research? And I think one of the things that I would like to try and tackle is how we get all of those students, which is a lot of them. I know there's a lot of them, from our classes into research labs that work for them. And I think one of the ways that we might be able to do that is through some graduate student mentoring. I also think that the graduate students doing the mentoring, I also think that we've already built a lot of mentorship opportunities for our graduate students within different courses in particular. And I think that we could think about how we structure the TA assignments in a way that allows graduate students to do more teaching mentoring and or to do more mentoring in relation to their research, so that they're kind of able to kind of tackle two birds with one stone, maybe in some different ways. And a lot of you know that in our new by 2x lab curriculum that someday will be taught in person, not now, we've been developing these course-based undergraduate research experiences, and that's exactly to kind of help our students get research experience. And we've been building them off of research that's happening in our department. So basically every student who goes through our labs will have these experiences. And as we train the graduate students into how to facilitate those experiences, I think there'll be a lot of training that goes into mentoring undergraduates in research more broadly than what we've historically done in the 2x. And so Carmen and I have been kind of now for a really long time preparing these undergraduate research experiences. And then we'll work with Adam as well about how we model that into our GTA training to help our graduate students be successful. Not sure if that got to your question or not, Mike, but let me know if it didn't.
Good. Thanks, Lori. We probably have time for one more question if anyone has one. I don't see anything in my chat. Nothing. Anybody want to speak up? Otherwise, we could give Lori a few extra minutes before her next meeting. No, looks good. Okay, I don't see anything. So let's, everyone, we can thank Lori, and I'm sure many of you will see her later today or tomorrow in your other meetings. Okay, thanks very much. And thank you, Lori, again for that great talk. Okay.
Thanks, Ginny. And thanks for being here, everyone.
Okay.